On May 24, 2019, the quiet town of New Canaan, Connecticut, became the epicenter of a chilling mystery when Jennifer Dulos, a 50-year-old mother of 5, vanished without a trace. What began as a missing person case soon unraveled into a complex and deeply unsettling story of betrayal, obsession, and murder. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a tangled web of lies and deceit that pointed to a bitter divorce, a custody battle, and a deadly plan. This is the story of Jennifer Dulos, a story that gripped the nation and left a community in shock. Jennifer Farber Dulos was born in New York City on September 27, 1968, into a life of privilege and opportunity. Her parents, Gloria and Hilliard Farber, were prominent figures in the city, known for their philanthropy and business success. Growing up on the Upper East Side, Jennifer was surrounded by culture and education, attending some of the finest schools in the city. She excelled academically and was known for her creative spirit and deep empathy. Jennifer was always the thoughtful one in our group. She was the kind of person who would remember your favorite book or send you a note when you were feeling down. Her kindness was genuine, and she was incredibly bright. Jennifer pursued her education with passion, earning a degree in English literature from Brown University, one of the most prestigious Ivy League schools in the country. She later attended the Tisch School of the Arts at New York University, where she honed her writing skills, particularly in playwriting. Jennifer's love for storytelling was evident in her work, which often explored the complexities of human relationships and emotions. In her early adult life, Jennifer lived in New York City, where she cultivated her writing career and maintained a close-knit circle of friends and family. She was known for her sharp wit, creativity, and deep love for her family. Despite her privileged background, Jennifer remained grounded, always striving to lead a life of purpose and meaning. In the early 2000s, Jennifer met Fotis Dulos, a Greek-American real estate developer with a bold vision and an ambitious drive. Fotis had moved to the United States to pursue his education, earning an MBA from Columbia University. His charm, confidence, and determination quickly won Jennifer's heart, and the two married in 2005. Jennifer and Fotis seemed like a perfect match at the beginning. He was charismatic and driven, and she was thoughtful and nurturing. They complemented each other well, or so it seemed. The couple settled in Farmington, Connecticut, where Fotis founded the Four Group, a luxury home development company. With Jennifer by his side, Fotis built a successful business, creating stunning, high-end properties in the affluent suburbs of Connecticut. The Dulos family soon grew, with Jennifer giving birth to 5 children, 3 sons and 2 daughters. Jennifer devoted herself to her children, becoming a full-time mother and homemaker. She was deeply involved in her children's lives, from their education to their extracurricular activities. Jennifer was known for her hands-on approach to parenting, ensuring that her children were nurtured, loved, and supported in every way possible. Jennifer was an amazing mother. Her kids were her world, and she did everything she could to give them a happy and stable life. She was always there for them, whether it was helping with homework, driving them to activities, or just spending quality time together. The Dulos family lived in a stunning home in Farmington, a testament to Fotis' success in the real estate business. The children attended prestigious private schools, and the family enjoyed an affluent lifestyle filled with vacations, social events, and the comforts of wealth. To outsiders, the Dulos family appeared to be living the American dream. But beneath the surface, the Dulos marriage was unraveling. By 2017, Jennifer Dulos had reached her breaking point. Her marriage to Fotis Dulos, once filled with promise and potential, had deteriorated into a relationship marked by control, deceit, and fear. After nearly 13 years of marriage, Jennifer made the difficult decision to file for divorce, seeking to protect herself and her 5 children from what she described as a toxic and potentially dangerous environment. In her divorce filings, Jennifer outlined a series of disturbing allegations against Fotis. She accused him of being emotionally abusive, manipulative, and controlling. Jennifer described how Fotis' behavior had become increasingly erratic, particularly in the wake of their marital troubles. She detailed his alleged infidelity, particularly his ongoing affair with a woman named Michelle Triconis, whom Fotis had been seeing for years. The affair with Michelle Triconis was a major point of contention in the divorce proceedings. Jennifer claimed that Fotis' relationship with Triconis had begun long before their separation and that it had caused significant strain on their marriage. Despite Fotis' denials, the evidence of the affair was undeniable, further complicating the already volatile divorce. But the battle between Jennifer and Fotis was not just about their marriage. It was about their children. The couple's 5 children, 3 sons and 2 daughters, were the center of Jennifer's world, and she was determined to protect them from what she saw as an unstable and harmful environment. In her court filings, Jennifer expressed deep concerns about Fotis' parenting. She alleged that Fotis was reckless, often putting the children in dangerous situations. She claimed that he had little regard for their safety and well-being, citing instances where he had engaged in risky behavior around them. Jennifer also accused Fotis of trying to alienate the children from her, creating an environment of fear and confusion within the family. The custody battle was fierce and bitter, with both sides hurling accusations at each other. Jennifer sought full custody of the children, arguing that Fotis' behavior posed a serious risk to their well-being. She requested that Fotis only be allowed supervised visitation, fearing that he might flee with the children to Greece, where he had strong ties. Custody battles are often contentious, but the Doulos case was particularly intense. Jennifer's concerns about Fotis' influence over the children were serious, and the court had to weigh these concerns against Fotis' rights as a father. The fact that he was accused of trying to alienate the children from Jennifer only added to the complexity of the case. As the custody battle dragged on, tensions between Jennifer and Fotis escalated. Jennifer became increasingly fearful for her safety and the safety of her children. She detailed in court filings how Fotis had allegedly threatened her, stating that he would take the children and disappear if she didn't comply with his demands. Jennifer's fears were palpable in her filings. She wrote, "I am afraid of my husband. I know that filing for divorce and filing this motion will enrage him. I know he will retaliate by trying to harm me in some way." These chilling words would later take on a haunting significance. Despite Jennifer's pleas, the court faced the difficult task of balancing the rights of both parents. Temporary custody was granted to Jennifer, but Fotis was allowed supervised visitation with the children. The court's decision was meant to protect the children's best interests, but it did little to ease Jennifer's fears. The battle raged on with no end in sight. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Jennifer was increasingly on edge. She had moved with the children to a rented home in New Canaan, hoping to start fresh and put some distance between herself and Fotis. But the fear that something terrible was about to happen loomed large. Friday, May 24, 2019, began like any other day for Jennifer Doulos. She had settled into her routine as a single mother, focused on caring for her 5 children and navigating the complexities of her ongoing divorce. That morning, she woke early, as she always did, to get her children ready for school. Jennifer dropped her children off at New Canaan Country School around 8 a.m. She was seen on surveillance cameras driving her black 2017 Chevrolet Suburban, looking calm and composed as she said goodbye to her kids. It was a typical school morning, and no one could have predicted that this would be the last time Jennifer would be seen alive. Jennifer was just like any other parent that morning. She was always so involved in her kids' lives, making sure they were settled before she went on with her day. None of us could have imagined that something so terrible was about to happen. After dropping off her children, Jennifer returned to her rented home on Wells Lane, a secluded property nestled in the woods of New Canaan. She had plans for the day, appointments to keep, errands to run. But something happened in the hours that followed that changed everything. As the day went on, Jennifer's friends and family began to grow concerned. She missed several appointments, including one with a doctor. Calls and texts to her phone went unanswered. By evening, it was clear that something was very wrong. At around 7 p.m., one of Jennifer's close friends, alarmed by her sudden silence and missed appointments, called the New Canaan Police Department to report her missing. The police quickly responded, recognizing that Jennifer's disappearance was out of character and potentially serious. Officers arrived at Jennifer's home that evening and found the house eerily quiet. There were no signs of forced entry, no indication that a struggle had taken place inside the house. But there was one thing missing: Jennifer. Her car was gone, and there was no trace of her anywhere on the property. The following morning, on May 25, 2019, the search for Jennifer took a grim turn. Police discovered her black Chevrolet Suburban parked at Wavani Park, a large public park about 3.5 miles from her home. The car was found near the park's entrance, empty and locked. Inside, there were no immediate signs of a struggle, but the fact that the vehicle had been abandoned in such a remote location raised alarm bells for investigators. Finding Jennifer's car at Wavani Park was a critical moment in the investigation. It suggested that whoever was responsible for her disappearance had deliberately left it there, possibly to mislead investigators or to buy time. At that point, it was clear this was no ordinary missing person case. The discovery of Jennifer's car prompted an extensive search of Wavani Park. Police K-9 units and volunteers scoured the park's vast wooded areas, ponds, and trails, hoping to find any sign of her. Despite their efforts, there was no trace of Jennifer. The investigation into the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos was a complex and painstaking process, involving multiple law enforcement agencies, forensic experts, and an entire community gripped by the unfolding mystery. As the days passed, investigators meticulously pieced together a timeline of events that would reveal a disturbing and chilling narrative. One police officer later stated, "Our primary objective was to locate Jennifer and bring her home safely. We searched every inch of Wavani Park, but the more we looked, the more we feared that something terrible had happened." As the search continued, investigators broadened their scope, combing through hours of surveillance footage from Jennifer's neighborhood and other key locations. They also began to examine the activities of those closest to her, particularly her estranged husband, Fotis Dulos, and his girlfriend, Michelle Triconis. In the days following Jennifer's disappearance, forensic teams descended upon her home, searching for any clues that might explain what had happened. What they found would prove to be crucial in unraveling the mystery. One of the most significant discoveries in the early days of the investigation was blood evidence found in Jennifer's garage. Investigators located traces of blood on the floor and on various surfaces, suggesting that a violent struggle had taken place. DNA analysis would later confirm that the blood belonged to Jennifer Dulos. A forensic expert later explained, "The blood evidence we found in Jennifer's garage was alarming. It indicated that she had been seriously injured, and the amount of blood suggested that her injuries were life-threatening." This finding shifted the case from a missing person investigation to a potential homicide. As investigators continued to piece together the timeline, they discovered surveillance footage from the morning of May 24, 2019, showing a black SUV similar to Jennifer's Chevrolet Suburban driving through New Canaan. But it wasn't just her vehicle that caught their attention. Further surveillance footage from the same day showed a different black SUV, one belonging to Fotis Dulos, driving through Hartford, Connecticut. In a shocking twist, investigators uncovered footage of him, accompanied by Michelle Triconis, making multiple stops in Hartford, disposing of trash bags in various dumpsters. When police recovered and examined the contents of those bags, they found items stained with Jennifer's blood, including clothing, sponges, and cleaning supplies. A police detective later stated, "The evidence we found in those trash bags was damning. It linked Fotis Dulos directly to the crime and suggested a coordinated effort to clean up the scene and dispose of incriminating evidence." This marked a critical breakthrough in the case. A neighbor recalled, "We knew that Jennifer and Fotis were going through a difficult divorce, but we never imagined it would end like this. Everyone in the neighborhood was in shock. We just hoped she would be found safe." Family member Jennifer was a devoted mother who would never willingly leave her children. "We were all terrified when we heard she was missing. The thought that someone she once loved and trusted could do this to her is beyond comprehension." As the investigation unfolded, the community rallied around Jennifer's family, holding vigils and organizing search efforts. But as the evidence against Fotis Dulos and Michelle Triconis mounted, the hope of finding Jennifer alive began to fade. As the investigation into Jennifer Dulos's disappearance deepened, suspicion increasingly fell on her estranged husband, Fotis Dulos. From the beginning, investigators had been wary of Fotis. Given the contentious divorce and custody battle he was embroiled in with Jennifer. But it wasn't until key evidence began to surface that their suspicions turned into something more concrete. In the days after Jennifer went missing, Fotis's actions raised red flags for investigators. He appeared unusually calm and uncooperative during initial police interviews, and his alibi for the day Jennifer disappeared was shaky at best. Surveillance footage showing Fotis disposing of trash bags in various dumpsters around Hartford provided the breakthrough police needed. On June 1, 2019, just over a week after Jennifer's disappearance, Fotis Dulos was arrested and charged with tampering with evidence and hindering prosecution. The arrest marked the first significant development in the case, signaling that investigators believed they were on the right track. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that Fotis Dulos was not acting alone. Michelle Triconis, his girlfriend, and Kent Mawhinney, a close friend and attorney, were both implicated in the plot to cover up Jennifer's disappearance. As the investigation progressed, Michelle Triconis, Fotis Dulos' girlfriend, emerged as a key figure in the case. Triconis, a native of Venezuela, had been living with Fotis and was heavily involved in his personal and professional life. Her role in the events surrounding Jennifer's disappearance became a focal point for investigators. During multiple interviews with police, Triconis' story changed several times. Initially, she denied any involvement, but under pressure, she began to admit that she had helped Fotis clean spilled coffee from his truck, a story that was later contradicted by forensic evidence showing blood in the vehicle. Her shifting accounts and nervous demeanor only deepened investigators' suspicions. Legal analyst Michelle Triconis' involvement was significant. The evidence suggested that she was actively helping Fotis cover up the crime. Whether out of loyalty or fear is still unclear. Her arrest was a major turning point in the case. Kent Mawhinney, a lawyer and friend of Fotis, was another critical player in the case. Mawhinney had a history of legal troubles and a connection to Fotis that went beyond mere friendship. On January 7, 2020, Mawhinney was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Investigators believed that Mawhinney had conspired with Fotis to eliminate Jennifer and cover up the crime. The charges against Fotis Dulos, Michelle Triconis, and Kent Mawhinney were severe. Fotis faced charges of capital murder and kidnapping, while Michelle and Kent were charged with conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with evidence, and hindering prosecution. The evidence against them was mounting, and the legal battle that followed would be one of the most closely watched in recent history. With the arrests came a flurry of legal maneuvers, as Fotis Dulos and his co-defendants prepared for what promised to be a highly publicized and contentious trial. Fotis, who maintained his innocence from the outset, hired a high-profile defense attorney to represent him. The legal strategy employed by Fotis's team focused on discrediting the evidence and casting doubt on the prosecution's case. As the trial of Fotis Dulos commenced, his defense team, led by high-profile attorney Norm Pattis, prepared for a fierce legal battle. From the outset, Pattis made it clear that the defense would be aggressive in challenging the prosecution's case, casting doubt on the evidence, and painting Fotis as a victim of a rush to judgment. Norm Pattis: the state's case against Fotis is built on speculation, not solid evidence. They want you to believe that a loving father who has no history of violence would suddenly commit such a heinous crime. We intend to show that the prosecution's narrative doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The defense strategy centered on several key points. First, they argued that the evidence against Fotis was largely circumstantial. While the state had video footage, blood evidence, and suspicious behavior, Pattis maintained that none of it directly tied Fotis to Jennifer's murder. Pattis also sought to discredit the police investigation, suggesting that investigators had fixated on Fotis from the beginning, leading to confirmation bias. He pointed out that other potential suspects were not thoroughly investigated, and that the police had ignored evidence that could have exonerated Fotis. Norm Pattis knew that to win this case, he needed to introduce doubt in the minds of the jurors. His strategy was to question every piece of evidence to make the jury wonder if the police had gotten it wrong, and to portray Fotis as a devoted father who was being unjustly targeted. The defense also focused on establishing an alibi for Fotis. They presented evidence that Fotis was at home with his children on the morning of May 24, 2019, when Jennifer was last seen. However, this alibi was shaky, as phone records and surveillance footage placed Fotis in locations that contradicted his claims. Pattis attempted to reframe the narrative of the relationship between Fotis and Jennifer, portraying the couple's contentious divorce as the result of Jennifer's alleged manipulations. He suggested that Jennifer had falsely accused Fotis of abuse to gain an advantage in the custody battle, and that her disappearance was part of a plot to frame him. Family members. The idea that Jennifer would stage her own disappearance to frame Fotis is absurd. She was a devoted mother who would never abandon her children. These claims are just desperate attempts to shift the blame. Opposing the defense was the prosecution team, led by Richard Colangelo. The prosecution's case was built on a compelling narrative that tied Fotis Dulos, Michelle Triconis, and Kent Mawhinney to a carefully planned and executed murder. The evidence, while circumstantial, formed a cohesive story that pointed directly at Fotis as the mastermind behind Jennifer's disappearance. The prosecution's case rested on establishing a clear timeline of events, starting from the morning Jennifer disappeared. They used surveillance footage, phone records, and witness statements to track Fotis' movements throughout the day. This timeline contradicted Fotis' alibi and placed him at key locations where incriminating evidence was later found. Richard Colangelo. The blood evidence found in Jennifer's garage is not just a coincidence. It indicates a violent struggle, and the DNA analysis confirms that this blood belongs to Jennifer Dulos. This, combined with the actions of the defendants on that day, points to a premeditated crime. One of the prosecution's strongest pieces of evidence was the surveillance footage showing Fotis and Michelle disposing of trash bags in various dumpsters around Hartford. The contents of these bags, which included items stained with Jennifer's blood, were key in linking the defendants to the crime. The prosecution also focused on the roles of Michelle Triconis and Kent Mawhinney, arguing that they were active participants in the plot. Michelle was accused of helping Fotis cover up the crime, while Mawhinney was implicated in the planning and execution. The prosecution painted them as co-conspirators who were fully aware of the gravity of their actions. To counter the defense's claims of a biased investigation, the prosecution presented evidence showing that the police had followed multiple leads and had thoroughly investigated other potential suspects. However, the evidence consistently pointed back to Fotis as the primary suspect. Richard Colangelo. The evidence tells a clear story. This was not a random act of violence. It was a calculated and deliberate act, carried out by Fotis Dulos with the help of his co-conspirators to remove Jennifer Dulos from his life permanently. We are confident that the jury will see the truth. The months leading up to the trial were filled with a series of contentious court hearings. Both the defense and prosecution made numerous motions, each trying to gain an advantage. As the trial date approached, these hearings were crucial in determining what evidence would be admissible in court and how the trial would be conducted. One of the defense's primary strategies was to suppress key pieces of evidence, including the surveillance footage and the blood evidence found in Jennifer's garage. They argued that the footage was inconclusive and that the forensic analysis was flawed. However, the judge ultimately ruled that most of the evidence could be presented at trial, dealing a significant blow to the defense. Given the intense media coverage of the case, the defense requested a change of venue, arguing that it would be impossible for Fotis to receive a fair trial in the local area. However, this request was denied, and the trial was set to take place in Stamford, Connecticut. In the lead-up to the trial, Fotis Dulos was released on bond under strict conditions. He was required to wear a GPS ankle monitor and was placed under house arrest. Despite these restrictions, Fotis continued to maintain his innocence, giving interviews and making public statements through his attorney. As the trial date approached, both sides prepared for what would be a high-profile and emotionally charged courtroom battle. The stakes were enormous, with the potential for life sentences hanging over the heads of the defendants. For Jennifer's family, the trial represented the hope of justice, while for Fotis, it was a fight for his very freedom. Under house arrest, Fotis spent most of his days confined to his home in Farmington, Connecticut. The isolation and the constant monitoring only added to his growing despair. While he continued to proclaim his innocence, his actions in those final days suggested that he was losing faith in his ability to clear his name. Norm Pattis. Fotis was deeply troubled in those final days. He was concerned about his children and about the impact this was having on them. He felt cornered, like the walls were closing in on him. He talked about how he didn't know if he could keep fighting. On the morning of January 28, 2020, the unthinkable happened. Fotis Dulos was scheduled to appear in court for a critical bond hearing. When he failed to show up, concerned authorities went to his home. What they found would shock the nation. Inside the garage, Fotis Dulos was discovered unconscious in his vehicle, a victim of carbon monoxide poisoning in a suicide attempt. He had attached a hose to the car's exhaust pipe, directing the deadly fumes into the car. Responders quickly pulled him from the vehicle and attempted to revive him. Fotis was airlifted to Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx, New York, where he was placed on life support. For 2 days, his condition remained critical, and the world watched as his fate hung in the balance. On January 30, 2020, Fotis Dulos was pronounced dead, never regaining consciousness. Fotis Dulos' suicide had a profound impact on the case. With his death, the charges against him were dismissed, and the trial that many had anticipated would bring justice for Jennifer Dulos never took place. Michelle Troni's and Kent Maney's cases continued, with both defendants still facing charges related to the conspiracy and cover-up. The prosecution aimed to hold them accountable for their roles in the plot, even as the central figure in the case was no longer alive to face trial. Even after the tragic end of Fotis Dulos and the legal battles surrounding his co-defendants, one question remained unanswered. Where is Jennifer Dulos? Despite exhaustive searches, her remains had never been found, leaving a painful void in the case and her family's hearts. Despite the relentless search efforts, Jennifer's remains were never discovered. Each passing day made it less likely that she would be found, but her family and supporters continued to hope for a breakthrough. The case became a cold but still open file, with investigators following up on any new leads, no matter how small. Over time, the search area expanded, with investigators considering the possibility that Jennifer's remains could have been moved or hidden in an area that had not yet been searched. Theories emerged about potential disposal sites, but none led to a definitive answer. For Jennifer's family, and especially her 5 children, the ordeal was far from over. The loss of their mother, coupled with the public spectacle of the case, took a devastating toll. Jennifer's parents, Gloria and Hillard Farber, took on the role of primary caregivers for their grandchildren, striving to provide a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. For Jennifer Dulos' family, Fotis' suicide was a double-edged sword. While some saw it as an admission of guilt, it also robbed them of the opportunity to see justice fully served in a court of law. The unanswered questions and the lack of a formal conviction left a void that could never truly be filled. In the wake of Fotis Dulos' death, the community continued to honor Jennifer's memory. Vigils, memorials, and fundraisers were held in her name, ensuring that her story would not be forgotten, even if the full measure of justice remained elusive. Jennifer Dulos' case, while tragic and unresolved in many ways, has sparked a broader conversation about domestic violence, the legal system, and the lengths to which individuals will go to avoid accountability. Her story served as a reminder of the importance of vigilance, support for victims, and the pursuit of justice, no matter how difficult the journey.